Well, welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. This is the second part of a conversation about staying connected to the vine while we're actually leading out the kingdom mission. And it's challenging to do that. And we have Father James Mallon here, who leads a global ministry with offices all over the globe, many employees, impacting thousands of Catholic Church leaders and Protestant alike, talking about missionality and mobilizing the church to the mission of Christ. James, in the first half, we talked about, about that mission. We talked about and began to touch on some of the battles that are there as in staying connected to the vine and balanced. What are some of the specific, for you as a leader, like you are a leader among leaders, of course each of us are going to have unique challenges in each of our leadership. Yeah. But what are some of the lessons that God has taught you personally about staying connected to the vine and staying healthy as a leader?
It's a huge question, Dwight. The irony is that, at least speaking personally right now, the people who are often asked about how to stay healthy as a leader are the ones who probably struggle with it the most. Because anyone who is ready to answer the call to lead and feels a passion that the church can be more, you're probably always going to push the boundaries of healthy leadership. You're always going to have to be, there's always going to be a tension there to becoming unhealthy. No one who can see their capacity to be an unhealthy leader, that's who listens to this podcast, right? That's who's listening, because we see what the cost is. And so I think of the different domains that we can be healthy in is obviously the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical, and they're all there. But I mean, let's start with the primary one, which is the spiritual. I mean, John 17 about the vine and the branches. I mean, Jesus is quite clear about that we don't grow and bear fruit, and we will not last unless we're plugged in there. So right away, the aspects of the spiritual life, commitment to daily prayer, commitment to spiritual accountability. I know in our friendship over the years, we've shared moments like that together. In my Catholic tradition, we have very much a tradition of spiritual direction. Like there would be an expectation that if you're a pastor or in a leadership role, that it's highly, highly, highly recommended that you have a spiritual director, someone with whom you're really accountable.
Yeah, now that has really grown in the Protestant denomination, right, which has been amazing.
The shift in even the last 25 years, and that has been incredible.
Yeah, but for those who don't understand what a spiritual director is, what is it?
It would be, I think, primarily a person with whom the mask is off.
Right.
How's your prayer life? It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's nothing like what I dreamt it would be. It's not what in my heart of hearts I desire it to be. Here's where I'm struggling. Here's where I'm experiencing grace. Here's what the Lord is saying to me. Here's some of the issues that I'm struggling with. Your spiritual director, in my context, could also be your confessor. So we have also the tradition of the sacrament of reconciliation, or sacrament of confession. Now, many Christians recognize that Scripture says confess your sins to one another, and there's different ways that can be done. But there brings with it this accountability thing, because what's one of the biggest dangers, greatest threats to potent leadership, and we've seen this. The greater the influence the Lord gives a leader, the greater the destruction that can be brought about by the fall of that leader. And one of the great sources of that is hidden sin, sin that we make peace with, and over time slowly rationalize and we don't disclose it. So that need to be honest, and to have someone with whom we're being transparent. So, and we can talk about how our spiritual life is doing. So I think that spiritual accountability is that spiritual health is so important. But think about what's our anthropology. We're not disembodied spirits. We're embodied spirits. And so body, mind, and spirit is, to be intellectually healthy, to not just sit around watching Netflix, but to be keeping our intellect fed, to read, to always be reading something. Emotional health is so key in a leader, because our emotions and our spiritual health are so closely connected. And there's so much we could say about this, because of the stresses that are going to be on a leader, especially if you're seeing growth in your ministry. At the heart of leadership is our relationships, healthy relationships. Every relationship is going to have bumps. There are difficult conversations that need to happen, difficult decisions that need to happen. We're going to be forced as leaders to deal with our own fears, our insecurities, our ego, all the kind of more embarrassing side of the human person, because we all have our own neediness that we bring into our ministries and our roles, and so we need to be confronted with that, and with that comes physical health as well. Like, it's so easy to, you put on 1 pound a week, that's 54 pounds at the end of the year. That's not sustainable. You're going to kill yourself. And so how do you maintain that health? How do you set limitations, especially when the demands on you increase and increase and increase?
Now, we talked about the spiritual director. The spiritual director can actually speak into the whole broadness of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think a good spiritual director would. I mean, obviously they would probably have more, they're going to be more focused on the spiritual life. I think if you do have a healthy, balanced spiritual life, the chances are that you will also be healthy in these other aspects.
Some of the other areas.
I know that to be true in my life. When I'm not spiritually healthy, that's usually when I put on weight too. Like, everything else kind of falls apart. And I think a lot depends today in this great season of change, when we talk about how the church interfaces with culture, how we are church within this post-Christian culture, and how we function as pastors and as leaders. A lot of that is going to impact our emotional health and physical health and our spiritual health. And the starting point of that is that you can't meet everyone's expectations. If your starting point is, I got to meet my bishop's expectations, my congregation's expectations, my spouse or my mother or my whatever my own expectations,
you eventually blow up.
You're gonna be crushed.
Yeah.
You're gonna be crushed. So you got to be clear, what can you do, what can only you do, and then build a team around you. The other thing I think was essential for me in my leadership was, we were all formed, whether it was at elementary school or high school or in university or in the seminary, under this I just call it an illusion of the well-rounded person.
Mm-hmm.
I've discovered, people might not agree with me, but I don't think there's any such thing as a well-rounded person. I've never met a well-rounded person, and I'm certainly not well-rounded. I am not well-rounded. I'm weird. I like to say, when I'm talking to leaders, I say, turn to each other and say, you're really weird. Because we're uniquely and wonderfully made, and we all have unique strengths and weaknesses. Mm-hmm. I don't believe there is any such thing as a well-rounded person. Mm-hmm. I think there can be a well-rounded team if we're intentional, which means the leader, you've got to be aware, like, what are my strengths and where are my weaknesses? Because if you have around you people who balance you out, and you're vulnerable and you're honest and you're humble enough to lean into their strengths where you're weak and allow them to challenge you, then you can then lean into your strengths the way that God's grace has molded you.
Yeah, one of the things we say around here is your strength is often your weakness. That God has actually created us to need each other in team. And we if it's dependent on one person, then we're in trouble. But if we can work together in all our strengths, there's so much more.
Well, yeah, I mean, people sometimes would say, because whether it's the ministry, the book, different leaders have a fairly high profile, and sometimes the downside of that is people say, well, I can't have impact because I'm not like such and such a person. And whenever people would say that about me, I was internally, I'm thinking, are you kidding? Like, come and hang out with me for 2 weeks and you will be cured of that illusion, I'll tell you, because by myself, I ain't that good. I used to say, like, if I was a car, I'm a big gas pedal with, like, where's the brake, And so you want to go for a drive with me? Like, no way. Like, me by myself, what I do is I rev the engine and I make it go faster and faster and faster until it all blows up and falls apart. That's what James Mallon does by himself. Even when he's got a good prayer life, that's what I do. Even with God's help, I mess it up.
But the contribution you make to the team is to keep that team moving forward.
If I bring a team around me, once I bring a team around me, then and I'm accountable in many ways to the team, and there's a culture in the team where they can speak into me and challenge me and help me to see things that I don't see. I remember years ago there was a moment in my ministry. I always knew that there was a fire burning in my heart, and when I spoke, when I talked about what we could be, when I rallied and called people, that generally I could get stuff done. I knew that. I knew I could make things happen and get stuff done. And I remember at one particular moment, I had known you for quite a number of years at this point, but and effectively turning around to celebrate a win, and I'm speaking metaphorically, of course, there are bodies all over the floor, and I'm like, what the heck happened? I happened, and I realized that by putting on kind of blinders and being hyper focused on goals and putting my head down and just going for it, that in the process of that I often hurt people. I trample over people. And here was the thing: not only did I not intend to do it, didn't even know I did it. And you turn around and it's like, what have I done? Yeah, I might have accomplished this or that, but what have I done in the process? Like, I didn't even know I did it. Now that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. And so I recognized not right away, but I recognized at that point that I can't. I'm dangerous. I should not be allowed out of my cage by myself. Like, I need to have people around me. I need people who are going to tell me when I'm being an idiot, when I'm being stupid, who will point out to me the things that I don't see, because I have blind spots. Now, here's the thing. In one sense, a true blind spot is when you don't even know you're blind. At least when you know it's a blind spot, you're not completely blind, but you're never going to have 20/20 vision in that area of your life. And so you learn that you need people, and you need people to speak honestly to you. And in the church, that's difficult, because in any organization where you're the boss, there's a power dynamic that's at play. And in the church, not only are you the boss, you're the spiritual leader as well. And in my context, as a Catholic, I'm the boss, spiritual leader, and I'm the priest. So the gap can be even greater. It's a huge problem. So I think of the words of St. Augustine. Many years ago, 4th century, he said this: for you I am a bishop, but with you I'm a Christian. I really believe that in Christian leadership, we need to be Christians with the people we serve and lead before we're their pastor or their leader. Christians with, and if that's the core dynamic, then we can be bishops for or leaders for.
Father James Mallon, this has been a great conversation. We've got to have a few more of these, because it's so good, and you've been sharing your heart and your journey, and so appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time on The Healthy Christian Leader. Well, thanks for joining this conversation. I trust that you were encouraged and challenged by the stories and experiences that were shared today. Would you join us next week? You can find new episodes weekly in video form on the Aaron Ministries YouTube page, and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. Aaron Ministries is an interdenominational network of friends in ministry with a mission to foster healthy Christian leadership. Check out our website, aaronministries.com, for for more information and resources, and on how you can donate to our ministry and potentially start a healthy Christian leader gathering in your area. Until we meet again, may you experience the Lord's blessing, grace, and peace. I'll see you next week.